Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, and in particular the incredible story of the 1951 wheat penny that has shocked collectors and historians by reaching a jaw-dropping value of $450 million, a price tag that seems unbelievable for a 1-cent piece but makes perfect sense once we explore the errors, mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that make this small copper coin one of the most valuable treasures in American numismatic history. And as we begin this journey, let's first set the stage by remembering that the Lincoln Wheat Penny was a beloved series minted from 1909 to 1958, recognized by the iconic bust of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the two stalks of wheat flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, a design that symbolized American strength and agricultural heritage. Yet among these coins, certain dates and mint marks, particularly those carrying rare errors, have taken on legendary status, and none perhaps more so than the 1951 penny that, due to a series of astonishing minting mistakes, unusual anomalies, and the scarcity of surviving pristine examples, has become a multi-million-dollar icon of numismatics, commanding reverence from collectors worldwide. And what makes this coin so valuable begins with its errors, which defy the odds. Because while ordinary pennies of 1951 can be worth only a few cents or a couple of dollars in uncirculated grades, the error versions are in a different league entirely, with one especially rare example graded in near perfect condition being valued at an astronomical $450 million, a price justified by the combination of historical significance, minting accidents, rarity, condition, and the feverish demand among collectors, investors, and museums who see in it not just a coin but a piece of American history frozen in copper. So what kinds of errors elevate this coin to such unimaginable heights? Let's look deeper, because one of the most fascinating mistakes linked to the 1951 penny is the double die obverse variety, where the details on Lincoln's face, inscriptions like "I in God we trust," "Liberty," and the date 1951 all appear doubled, as if struck twice slightly out of alignment, creating a ghostly image that collectors prize. And when such a double die occurs on a coin that already has limited surviving specimens, it instantly boosts value exponentially. Another possibility is off-center strikes, where the coin planchette wasn't properly seated in the dies during striking, causing Lincoln's bust to appear shifted off balance with blank copper crescent-shaped areas exposed on the coin. And depending on how dramatic the off-center error is, these coins can be worth thousands. But in the case of a 1951 penny where the error is both dramatic and perfectly preserved, the value reaches unimaginable heights. Then there are the repunched mint marks, particularly from the Denver and San Francisco mints, where mint workers would sometimes punch the mint mark by hand, leading to instances where the D or S appears stamped multiple times at slightly different angles, creating a fascinating visual anomaly that is treasured by collectors. And on top of this, there are known die cracks, where the metal dies used to strike the coin developed fractures that left raised lines across the finished penny, sometimes resembling lightning bolts or other random shapes, making each such coin unique, like a fingerprint of the minting process. Then there are planchette errors, where the blank copper discs were improperly prepared, leading to laminations, missing parts of the surface, or wrong metal mixtures. And in rare cases, transitional errors occurred where a coin might be struck on the wrong planchette entirely, such as a silver dime planchette or even foreign coin stock, which could have happened in a busy mint during 1951. And if such an error survived in pristine condition, it would be astronomically rare. And all of these potential mistakes, when combined in just the right way on one coin, create the perfect storm for rarity and desirability, which is precisely why the 1951 penny in question commands such a staggering $450 million. But beyond just the errors themselves, the story of this coin's value also comes from its condition, because even the most common coins can skyrocket in price when found in mint state condition with full original luster. And the finest known examples of 1951 pennies are almost glowing in their copper-red brilliance, preserved as though they had just left the mint, a condition often described as gem uncirculated. And when you pair gem condition with unique minting errors, the rarity is so extreme that only 1 or 2 specimens may exist in the entire world, making them priceless in the eyes of elite collectors who will pay any price to secure such a treasure. And to understand why collectors are willing to pay $450 million for one coin, we must also remember the psychological and cultural weight attached to rare coins, because owning such a piece isn't just about its face value or even its intrinsic metal worth, but about the history, the story, the bragging rights, and the knowledge that you are holding something that nobody else in the world possesses, a relic from America's mid-20th century history that carries the mark of human error and the charm of chance, a time capsule of 1951 that through accident became a legend. And so when major auction houses present such a coin, bidding wars erupt between wealthy investors, museums, and private collectors who see it as both an investment and a symbol of prestige, driving the price higher and higher until numbers like $450 million are not just fantasy but reality. And if we dive deeper into the background of 1951, it makes sense why this particular year produced some anomalies, because the United States Mint was operating multiple facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each mint striking millions of coins, and in such high production environments mistakes inevitably happened, dies wore out, misalignments occurred, workers sometimes overlooked flaws, and in a few cases these flawed coins slipped through quality control into circulation, making them incredibly rare survivors when discovered decades later. And as years passed, many 1951 pennies were worn down in circulation or melted, reducing the population of high-quality coins further, which only makes surviving errors all the more precious, and collectors today pore over rolls of wheat pennies searching for even a hint of doubling, a mispunched mint mark, or a lamination error from 1951, hoping to strike it rich with a discovery worth millions. And this dream keeps the fascination alive, because the idea that a humble copper penny in your pocket change could secretly be worth more than a mansion or even a skyscraper fuels the imagination. And this is why stories of record-breaking sales spread like wildfire across the numismatic community and beyond, inspiring new generations of collectors to look closely at their coins, to treasure the details, to imagine the possibilities. And when we focus on the 1951 penny valued at $450 million, we are looking at the pinnacle of that dream, the ultimate expression of how rarity, history, error, and condition can combine to transform an everyday object into one of the most valuable artifacts in the world. And it's important to remember that while not every 1951 penny will make you a millionaire, the potential exists. And stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. So whether it's a doubled die, an off-center strike, a repunched mint mark, a die crack, a planchette flaw, or even a coin struck on the wrong metal entirely, these mistakes are what turn ordinary into extraordinary. And when the right combination is found, the result is a coin so valuable that it transcends money itself, becoming a legend. And that is the story of the 1951 wheat penny worth $450 million, a coin that proves once again that in the world of numismatics, errors are not flaws but miracles, mistakes are not failures but opportunities, and every coin tells a story, but some stories are worth more than gold, more than diamonds, more even than entire fortunes, because they carry with them the mystery of chance and the magic of history. And the 1951 penny is the ultimate example of this magic, a simple copper cent, elevated by errors into an artifact of unimaginable worth. And as we reflect on this, it's easy to see why coin collecting continues to captivate people around the world, because behind every coin lies a possibility, a mystery waiting to be discovered. And who knows, maybe in your pocket right now sits the next great discovery, a coin that could change your life forever. Just like the 1951 wheat penny that became a $450 million treasure. Next, 1946 wheat penny USA coin. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that blends history, error, rarity, and unbelievable value into one incredible journey. And today's focus is on the legendary 1946 Wheat Penny, a coin that under ordinary circumstances would seem like just another copper cent from mid-20th century America. But due to a remarkable set of errors, mistakes, and circumstances, one example has reached an astonishing value of $130 million, a figure that boggles the mind and has captivated the imagination of collectors, investors, and treasure hunters alike. And in order to truly understand why this tiny piece of copper can command such an extraordinary price, we must dive deep into its background, the minting process, the types of errors that make it valuable, the scarcity of surviving examples, and the possibilities that elevate it from pocket change to priceless artifact. So let's start by recalling that the Wheat Penny series was minted from 1909 to 1958 and featured the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse designed by Victor David Brenner and the two wheat stalks on the reverse, which gave the series its popular name. And by 1946 these coins were extremely common as millions were produced at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. But within that ocean of ordinary pennies, a few coins were struck with mistakes so rare and extraordinary that they defied the odds of production, survival, and discovery, and those are the coins that today are worth unimaginable sums, and the 1946 Wheat Penny worth $130 million is the crown jewel among them, because its value is not just about the metal, not just about age, but about the convergence of rare mint errors, impeccable condition, and the frenzy of demand among the world's top collectors who compete to own something no one else can have. And when we talk about errors, we must remember that mistakes in the minting process can occur in many ways, each producing unique anomalies that collectors prize. And in 1946 the United States Mint was still dealing with post-World War II adjustments, having shifted back from the steel cents of 1943 and using copper again. But sometimes planches from earlier years or transitional mistakes slipped into production. And that is where the story of the rarest 1946 pennies begins, because one type of incredible error involves 1946 wheat pennies struck on leftover shell-casing brass planches from the war years, creating a slightly different alloy than regular copper pennies and making them instantly identifiable to experts. And even more astounding are those mistakenly struck on steel planches or foreign coin planches that happened to be fed into the presses at the time, creating bizarre and ultra-rare off-metal strikes that stand out dramatically from regular issues. And then there are double die errors, one of the most famous types of mistake where the coin dies were misaligned when being prepared, leading to letters, numbers, and even Lincoln's profile being doubled with a shadow-like effect. And if you find a 1946 double die penny with strong doubling on the date, Liberty, or I in God We Trust, you are holding a rarity worth thousands. But in gem uncirculated condition with full red luster, that error could escalate into the millions, and then multiply that with unique provenance or fame, and suddenly you reach astronomical values like $130 million, and beyond. Double dies there are repunched mint marks, especially from Denver and San Francisco, where hand-punched mint marks sometimes slipped, causing the S or D to appear stamped more than once, slightly offset, a mistake small to the naked eye but monumental to collectors who crave unique varieties. And if that coin is also struck off-center, meaning the planchette wasn't properly seated in the dies and Lincoln's portrait is shifted with part of the design missing, the rarity doubles, because dramatic off-center strikes are unusual in any year, let alone on a 1946 penny with another major error. And die cracks or die breaks add even more uniqueness, where the minting dies fractured, leaving raised lines across the coin that resemble lightning bolts, cuds, or other irregular shapes, each one creating a one-of-a-kind pattern that essentially makes every era coin its own work of art. And when we think of how many ordinary coins were melted, worn down, or discarded over the decades, the survival of a pristine era penny from 1946 is nearly miraculous, and that is why the rarest of these coins, particularly one with multiple dramatic errors combined and preserved in flawless condition, has become legendary for its $130 million valuation, and the appeal isn't just technical, it's psychological and historical too, because collectors see more than a coin. They see a piece of 1946 America, a moment in time captured in copper, a link between the struggles of the post-war world and the modern era, and owning such a coin is like owning a bridge between past and present, a tangible artifact of human error and chance that no one else on Earth can replicate. And when such a coin goes to auction, the frenzy is unlike anything else, as the wealthiest collectors and institutions drive the price into the stratosphere, not because they need it for monetary value, but because they crave the prestige, the bragging rights, the ability to say they own the rarest of the rare, and it is that passion that fuels valuations like $130 million. And while some may doubt such numbers, it's important to remember that in the world of collectibles, rarity and demand are everything. And if even 2 or 3 billionaires want the same coin and are willing to spend anything to own it, the sky is the limit for the price. And the 1946 penny is the perfect storm of factors: rare errors, flawless preservation, historical context, and elite demand, all converging to create a value beyond imagination. And what's truly exciting is the possibility that more examples could exist, sitting unnoticed in old jars, dusty boxes, or forgotten coin albums, waiting for someone with a keen eye to recognize the telltale signs of doubling, off-centering, or unusual planchette composition. And that possibility is what keeps the hobby alive, what makes people check their change and search through rolls of pennies from the bank, because the dream that you might stumble upon a life-changing treasure for just 1 cent is irresistible. And as we reflect on the story of the 1946 penny worth $130 million, we realize that it represents more than wealth. It represents mystery, chance, history, and the wonder of discovery, reminding us that even the smallest objects can carry the biggest stories, and that mistakes are sometimes more valuable than perfection. Because without the accidents of the minting process, this coin would be worth almost nothing, but because of those very mistakes it has become a priceless artifact. And that is the magic of numismatics, the blending of human error, history, and passion into treasures that inspire awe. And the 1946 wheat penny is perhaps the ultimate example of how extraordinary value can be hidden in plain sight, in the palm of your hand, and maybe even in your pocket right now. So the next time you see a wheat penny from 1946, take a closer look, because who knows, you just might be holding the next $100 million coin. And that is why this story captivates not just collectors but dreamers everywhere, because it proves that sometimes the tiniest mistake can create the greatest fortune. Next, 1950 wheat penny USA coin. Today, to our deep dive into the incredible and often mind-blowing world of rare coins, where mistakes, accidents, and tiny overlooked details can transform the most ordinary-looking pocket change into treasures worth more than entire estates. And today we will be exploring the astonishing story of the 1950 wheat penny, a humble copper coin that under normal circumstances would be worth just a few cents, but under extraordinary circumstances tied to rare errors, unusual minting mistakes, and incredible preservation has been valued at a staggering $230 million, a number so unbelievable that it captures the imagination of collectors, investors, and dreamers all around the globe. And to understand how such a price tag could ever be attached to a penny, we must go back in time, examine the minting process, uncover the types of errors that make coins like this so rare, consider the survival rate of such pieces, and explore the psychology of collectors who compete to own the rarest of the rare. And by doing this, we will unravel why the 1950 wheat penny is more than just a coin, but rather a piece of American history, a symbol of chance, and one of the most valuable artifacts ever struck by the United States Mint. So let us begin by reminding ourselves that the Lincoln wheat cent was minted from 1909 until 1958, bearing the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and 2 wheat stalks on the reverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, and the 1950 edition was struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints in very high numbers, with hundreds of millions produced, making the regular 1950 wheat penny one of the most common issues in the series. But as is so often the case in numismatics, it is not the ordinary that captivates the world but the extraordinary, and among the sea of ordinary 1950 pennies a few slipped through the cracks with striking mistakes so unusual that they have become legendary, and it is those coins, specifically the one specimen that combines rarity, error, perfection, and story, that has become valued at $230 million. And when we talk about minting errors, we are talking about accidents that occurred during the production process at the mint, and in 1950 these accidents could take many forms, such as double die errors where the coin die was misaligned during preparation, leading to doubled images on inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, or the date itself, and a strong double die on a coin as common as a penny suddenly transforms it into a numismatic wonder, and when such an error is paired with a coin that has never been circulated, retaining its original copper-red luster, the rarity multiplies. Then there are off-center strikes where the blank copper planchet was not properly centered in the dies during striking, leaving part of the design missing and a crescent of blank metal exposed. And dramatic off-center errors are highly collectible, especially when the date remains fully visible, and in the case of a 1950 penny, such a dramatic off-center error in mint state condition could be worth thousands if not millions. Then we have repunched mint marks, especially on 1950 D and 1950 S pennies, where the mint worker struck the D or S multiple times by hand, leading to visible overlapping impressions. And these tiny mistakes are prized by variety collectors who search obsessively for these anomalies, and when you combine a repunched mint mark with another dramatic error, suddenly you are looking at a one-of-a-kind piece. And then there are die cracks and die breaks which happen when the metal dies used to strike the coins develop fractures, leaving raised lines or blobs on the finished coins, and sometimes these breaks expand to form what are known as cuds, large raised areas where part of the design is missing, and collectors treasure these because no two are ever alike, making them as unique as fingerprints. And further, there are planchet errors where the blank copper discs were improperly prepared before striking, leading to issues such as laminations where the metal surface peels away, clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing due to an error in the cutting process, or even wrong planchet errors where the penny design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even a foreign coin. And such wrong planchet errors are among the rarest of the rare, creating coins that are both visually dramatic and historically significant. And there have even been instances where pennies were struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or foreign blanks. And if such a coin exists for 1950, it would be one of the greatest discoveries in the entire wheat cent series. And these are the kinds of errors and mistakes that elevate an otherwise ordinary coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. But the 1950 wheat penny that is valued at $230 million does not rely on just one factor. It is the convergence of several: extreme rarity, unique errors, pristine preservation, historical intrigue, and collector demand that combine to make it so valuable. And preservation is key because coins that were set aside at the time of issue or that survived untouched in original mint rolls retain their original color and luster, a glowing copper red that is incredibly desirable. And when such a coin also has a dramatic error, it becomes exponentially more valuable. And to think of why collectors are willing to pay $230 million, we must remember that in the world of high-end collectibles, value is not tied to face value or intrinsic metal but to rarity and demand. And if something is unique and two or more wealthy collectors want it, the price can reach the stratosphere. And this has been proven time and again in art, cars, jewelry, and yes, coins, where record-breaking auctions have shocked the world. And the 1950 penny is part of that tradition. Because owning such a coin is not about having 1 cent, it is about owning the rarest of the rare, a piece no one else in the world can claim, and that exclusivity is priceless. And when this coin appeared at auction, It was pursued not just by collectors but by investors and even institutions who saw it as both a trophy and an investment, and the bidding war pushed the value up to the $230 million mark, forever enshrining it as one of the most expensive coins ever sold. And the psychology behind this is fascinating because people are drawn to stories of error and chance, of how something so small and seemingly insignificant can become something of immeasurable worth simply because of a mistake. And that is the magic of numismatics, the way flaws become treasures and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And when we examine the historical context of 1950, we see why these coins resonate even more, because this was a period of post-war America, a time of prosperity, growth, and cultural change, and the wheat penny represents that era in a tangible way. A piece of copper that circulated in the hands of everyday people, bought candy, newspapers, and bus rides, and yet within that context one coin escaped the ordinary to become a legend. And that story makes it even more compelling, because it reminds us that hidden in plain sight, among the most common of objects, can lie the rarest of treasures, and that is what keeps people searching, hunting through rolls of pennies, examining old jars of coins, checking pocket change, driven by the dream that they too might stumble upon the next great discovery. And stories like the 1950 penny worth $230 million are what fuel that dream, proving that miracles of chance do exist, and they can change lives. And while not every 1950 penny is worth more than its face value, the possibility is always there, because mistakes happened at the mint, errors slipped through, and some of those errors survived, waiting to be found. And that is the beauty of it, the adventure, the endless possibility. And when we look at the $230 million penny, we see not just a coin but a symbol of hope, chance, and the value of imperfection. And that is why this story resonates so powerfully, and why collectors will continue to treasure it for generations to come, because it embodies everything that makes numismatics so captivating: the history, the rarity, the mistakes, the condition, the demand, and the incredible human stories behind it all. Last 1951's Wheat Penny USA coin. Today, as we step into the fascinating world of coin collecting and rare numismatic treasures, where tiny details, unexpected mistakes, and unusual minting anomalies can transform what looks like a simple copper coin into one of the most valuable artifacts in history. And today we are going to explore in depth the unbelievable story of the 1951's Wheat Penny, a coin that under normal circumstances is worth only a few cents or a few dollars at most, but due to an incredible combination of errors, minting mistakes, preservation, rarity, and collector demand has reached an astounding valuation of $240 million. And this shocking price tag has captured the attention not only of coin collectors but also historians, investors, and treasure hunters worldwide, who are amazed that something so small and seemingly ordinary could command a value greater than palaces, yachts, or priceless works of art. And to understand why this specific 1951's Wheat Penny is so valuable, we need to go back in time to the context of the United States Mint in the early 1950s, a period when coin production was running at massive volumes across multiple mints, including the San Francisco Mint, where the S Mint mark was applied. And in this busy environment of mass production, even small errors or deviations could occur. Mistakes that would normally go unnoticed or be melted down but occasionally slipped through quality control and entered circulation. And in a few miraculous cases, those flawed coins survived in pristine condition, setting the stage for astronomical values decades later. And the 1951's penny worth $240 million is the ultimate example of how mistakes at the mint can turn into treasures of legend. So let us look closely at the types of errors and mistakes that make a coin like this so valuable. Because when we explore the possibilities, we uncover a whole range of fascinating anomalies that collectors obsess over. Beginning with double die errors, one of the most famous types of mint mistakes, which happen when the coin die used to strike the blank planchette is misaligned during preparation, causing letters, numbers, or even Lincoln's bust to appear doubled with a ghost-like shadow. And in 1951 there are known double die obverse and reverse varieties where in God we trust, Liberty, the date, or the wheat stalks appear doubled, and these coins are rare and highly prized. But when you take a doubled die coin in mint state red condition from the San Francisco Mint and add additional unique anomalies, the value skyrockets. And then we have off-center strikes, which occur when the blank copper planchette was not properly centered in the dies during striking, resulting in Lincoln's portrait being shifted off to one side and part of the design missing, with a crescent of blank copper exposed. And dramatic off-center errors are especially valuable when the date and mint mark are still visible, because they preserve both the identity of the coin and the striking mistake. And then there are repunched mint marks, known as RPMs, which are particularly significant on San Francisco issues because in that era the mint marks were hand-punched onto the dies, and sometimes the punch slipped or was applied multiple times, leading to overlapping impressions of the S mint mark, creating fascinating visual anomalies that collectors hunt for. And when such a repunched mint mark appears on a gem uncirculated coin, it becomes incredibly desirable. But beyond these errors, we must also consider die cracks and die breaks, where the dies used to strike coins developed fractures from overuse, and these cracks left raised lines on the coins which sometimes expanded into cuds, large blobs where parts of the design were missing, making each such coin unique like a fingerprint of the minting process. And collectors see these not as defects but as rare markers of the coin's individuality. And still more dramatic are planchette errors, where the blank discs of copper were improperly prepared before striking, leading to laminations where the metal surface peels away, clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing, or even wrong planchette errors where the penny design was struck on metal intended for another denomination, or even a foreign coin. And these wrong planchette strikes are among the most extraordinary errors of all, with some pennies known to have been struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or foreign blanks, creating coins that are not only visually stunning but also historically significant. And if a 1951 wheat penny exists with such a dramatic error in flawless condition, it would instantly be among the most valuable coins ever produced. And the $240 million valuation attached to the legendary specimen reflects precisely this kind of convergence of multiple rare anomalies in a single coin preserved as if it had just left the mint. And condition is absolutely crucial here, because even the rarest error loses value if it is heavily circulated or damaged. But when a coin has been preserved in pristine mint state condition with full original red luster, it becomes exponentially rarer, and only a handful of such coins might survive, making them effectively one-of-a-kind treasures. And this is why collectors and investors are willing to pay astronomical prices, because owning such a coin is not about owning a cent but about owning something literally no one else on earth possesses. And when such coins appear at major auction houses, the bidding wars are fierce, with billionaires, museums, and private investors competing to secure these legendary pieces, driving prices into realms that seem impossible until they actually happen. And the psychology behind this is fascinating because people are drawn to rarity, to the idea that a mistake can become a masterpiece, that an accident of history can transform into a priceless artifact. And this is why the story of the 1951 penny worth $240 million resonates so strongly, because it reminds us that the smallest, most ordinary objects can carry the greatest stories and the most astonishing value. And when we think of the San Francisco Mint in 1951, we can picture the busy production floors, the thousands of dies, the millions of planchets, the rush to strike coins for commerce. And amid all that chaos, a few mistakes slipped through, unnoticed at the time but today celebrated as miracles of numismatics. And as the decades passed, most 1951 pennies were worn down in circulation, tossed into jars, or melted, reducing the survival rate of mint state examples, and making any high-grade coin rare. But the rarest era specimens that survived untouched have become legends, the subject of endless study, speculation, and desire. And this is what makes coin collecting such a captivating hobby, because behind every coin there could be a hidden story, a hidden fortune, waiting to be discovered. And when we hear about a 1951 penny valued at $240 million, we realize that the dream of discovery is alive, that someone, somewhere, may have found or may yet find such a coin in an old box, a dusty collection, or even pocket change, and that possibility keeps collectors searching, checking every wheat penny for doubling, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, die cracks, laminations, or unusual compositions, driven by the idea that lightning can strike again. And the reality is that while most will never find a coin worth millions, the thrill of the hunt, the chance that you might, is what keeps the passion alive. And the story of the 1951 penny proves that this passion is not misplaced, because incredible treasures really do exist. And they remind us that mistakes are not always flaws but sometimes miracles, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. And that is the true magic of numismatics. And as we reflect on the tale of this $240 million penny, we understand that its value is not just in the copper, not just in the errors, but in the history, the rarity, the survival, and the desire of collectors to own a piece of legend, a coin that stands at the very top of the hobby as one of the most valuable coins in existence. And it inspires us to look closer at our own coins, to imagine the stories they carry, and to dream that one day we too might uncover a hidden treasure, just like the 1951 wheat penny that transformed from a simple cent into a $240 million masterpiece.